Hello all, welcome to the CII SummitFX from 1st to 4th of September 2020. So we have Mr. Luke Groves, he's the head of Studio Toronto, and Mr. Siva Raman, he's the head of production of Mr. X Bangalore. So basically, over to you guys. Over to you, Mr. Siva Raman.
Thank you. Good evening, guys. First of all, a big thank you to everyone for tuning in for this session. This is Sivaraman, and I'm going to be hosting this session, Reflections and Prognosis, a VFX Studio Head's View. Today, we have with us an eminent and dynamic person from the VFX industry, a man who can wear multiple hats at will, Mr. Luke Groves, Head of Studio, Mr. X Toronto. Welcome, Luke.
Hi, thank you, Siva. Welcome.
Luke, if I'm right, you are with Mr. X for more than 9 years and pretty much an integral part of the core team, heavily involved in quite a lot of flagship shows which Mr. X does, like Resident Evil series, Silent Hill, and quite a few Netflix shows. You have also played a huge role in Shape of Water, which is the crown jewel project of the studio. Can you talk us a little bit about your journey with Mr. X?
Yeah, so I actually started out at Mr. X in 2005, so just over 15 years ago now. Cumulatively, I've spent about 9 years at Mr. X. I've worked at a few studios kind of in between two periods at the company. And I basically came in, straight out of school, got my first job in the industry at Mr. X, and spent most of my formative years here learning the visual effects pipeline process, the artistry, the technical side of it, the business side of it, and then came back to Mr. X about 6 years ago as a visual effects producer, where I had been previously focused on series episodic shows working out of Toronto, and came back to Mr. X and continued that path, working on series here like The Strain, Bates Motel. We worked on the Resident Evil films, worked on pitching Monster Hunter and getting that off the ground, which is an upcoming feature that Mr. X is a producer on. And, then we got into the Shape of Water, which was just a super exciting, very passionate project that we delivered with our partner, Guillermo del Toro, who we've worked with on numerous shows over the years. Shows that he's directed, shows that he's produced, series that he's produced, and been a repeat partner with him. Recently just finishing a film called Antlers that due to COVID has been postponed, but very excited to see that movie get released, hopefully in the next few months.
That's so good to hear, Luke. And in fact, I think while we are talking about how your career and journey has been, I think let's also start with some more reflection on Shape of Water. So a couple of things which I'm very curious to know, and I'm sure a lot of people were also asking this question before we got into this, is how was your experience working with a filmmaker like Del Toro? Was there a lot of nervousness on both these sides? Experience like?
Well, I came into it just while they were starting to shoot, and so Dennis Berardi, the visual effects supervisor on the show, had been working with Guillermo on this project, getting it prepped for many months before that. So when I joined the show, we were shooting, and I would say the sense of pressure was almost immediate. We knew the kind of journey that was placed before us, which was trying to bring a level of emotion and personality and character to a non-human creature. That is just simply a daunting task, to be able to develop something that is going to be a primary character in the film and be able to have it emote and resonate realistically. So yes, it was a a very big challenge, but we knew we were in good hands, and we wanted to reassure the filmmakers that they were in good hands with the visual effects side. The key is always the partnership early on in the process. You know, as soon as a script is written, if we can have that script to start working from, to start, you know, running our imaginations and coming up with ideas and thoughts and stories, that is key. And with Guillermo and the shows that we work on with him, there is always as much time to plan as there is to deliver and execute the work, which is just truly invaluable. And the other thing that happens happened on this show and continues to happen on all projects that we work with him on is the hybrid nature approach that we have. So we're never trying to overpower with visual effects or overpower with CG work. We're trying to partner with all the other departments on the movie, so that we can be able to augment, embellish, exaggerate, and complement what all the other departments are creating. And that type of approach is where we see the best returns on the quality, on the story, because we're able to, like I said, exaggerate what's in camera. And that's truly what we want to do to be able to deliver on seamless effects. So yes, there, you know, as we were developing this, the creature with legendary effects, who built the suit that we then worked on for the fish creature. It was just a truly long-term investment and something that could always get better until it was perfect. And one of the things that had to be, well, everything in that movie had to be perfect in every detail, every frame, every micro expression that we would augment the creature with had to be perfect and had to mean something. And so, yes, it was an immense pressure, and it took a team of people to embody that character to be able to deliver the performance that the director was looking for.
The movie, the finished product was just amazing. Everyone who sees it has a stunned look. But when the filmmaker when Del Toro started working with you, did he have that kind of an expectation from Mr. X? And was that the expectation from the overall movie, or it was something which organically evolved after you guys started working?
I would say, if it's funny, because when I've done a few discussions on this movie before, one of the things I did recently was I pulled up my original spotting notes. So spotting meaning as he's shooting and he's assembling the work, he likes to try and turn over shots as early as possible. So Dennis and I, in our very first spotting, where we saw kind of a rough assembly of the movie, and we took all of our notes for what that movie was eventually going to be. The finished product echoes those notes like perfectly, which means the vision was always there and the vision was always consistent. And one of the things that we often find with visual effects is that when there's consistency to the vision, that means all the time that you spend developing, whether it's a character, an environment, a type of effect, the consistency just allows you more time to perfect the effect. If you continue to change and veer off course as you're developing, it means you kind of are always like, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And in this case, it was always just forward thinking, forward planning, and every time was spent on that initial vision. So that's one of the things that is really exciting for us, because we're allowed to just craft something that is truly bespoke and at the highest level of quality, without having to make big sweeping creative changes during the process. We're always kind of chipping away at that sculpture to refine it, add more detail, add more personality, and more ability to tell a story.
I'm sure we can keep talking about Shape of Water the entire day. Maybe we should reserve that for another session. And another thing it leads to is when you have a project like Shape of Water, where you had time to prepare, plan, and then you are partnering with someone who completely understands the effort which goes in. On the contrary, I'm sure you would have also worked with a lot of directors, movie makers who are new to doing the VFX genre, or so how do you manage with people who don't have prior experience producing or directing VFX movies or shows? And what is the kind of preparation you do from your end to avoid risk? And what is the kind of contingency and buffers you bake in?
So in terms of like the workflow that we had on Shape of Water or Antlers or Crimson Peak or The Strain, that isn't necessarily the norm. You know, in those cases, we have a filmmaker who really loves the visual effects process, really loves animation, and is an expert himself, and that really helps kind of guide our team. On many shows, you could be lacking that because not everybody in the world comes from a visual effects background or an animation background, and it's hard for them to understand our process because it's a very involved and complex process. So, you know, what does that lead to? It always leads to education. We always try and provide our clients with every opportunity for us to kind of train and educate them on our process so that they know how to work with us in the best way. I mean, we are a tool in the tool belt. If you don't know how to use that tool, it's going to sit in the tool belt unused, or when you need it, it could get used incorrectly. So our job is to always educate and provide them a full understanding as much as possible and in as much depth as they're interested to understand how we work. Because ultimately, when we want to have the highest level of success on our work, we have to be, you know, in those early discussions on how a shot is going to be put together, how we're going to lens and film that shot so that it will complement, the plate will be very complementary to the work that we put into it. Because all the work that we do, for the most part, outside of full CG shots, is all based on plates that are shot. And if that source material doesn't lead itself to be utilized by visual effects, then it's going to be a much bigger challenge. It's going to be a bigger challenge schedule-wise, resource-wise, financially, because it doesn't, the puzzle doesn't go together as easily as it should. So education up front is what we always strive for, and we love to take clients in and walk them through the process, because we know that the more clients that know how to work with visual effects and can distribute that information to their colleagues and stuff like that, is just going to allow for like a wider playing field for people to have success with visual effects. So the visual effects supervisor and the visual effects producer are key roles in that model, and the key people that provide that level of education to the filmmakers. So if in those cases where things don't happen according to plan, say, you know, we shot something without a green screen, now we need to rotoscope every frame. We shot something the wrong time of day, the wrong lighting to put in a background or environment, and we have to change the photography. You know, that stuff can lead to it takes longer time to deliver the same level of quality that it would if we had planned that shot together up front. And, you know, if things take longer, that means more time, more money, more people. And on the, you know, in the landscape that we're working in right now, where, you know, schedules and budgets are, you know, they're always eroding, and it's our job to be able to pivot and find efficient ways of delivering on this work and on those timelines and on those budgets. The key is to do the upfront investment in planning and education so that we can know, so that we have a more consistent, you know, as close to guarantee as possible that the end result is going to work.
Yeah. So I echo your sentiments. I think coaching them, learning mutually on the challenges which filmmakers have on the set, and the filmmakers learning on this VFX part, I think that's going to make the budget more effectively and efficiently used rather than salvaging work out. So do you have any samples, any visuals that you can show to the audience on any of the shows that you have worked?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. So I have a few images that I like to show that kind of counters those points of like the under planning in some cases and pushing for successful results. So I'm just going to share some images with you now. I can quickly talk through. So just let me know if you're seeing my screen now. Okay, great. Yes. So, you know, what Mr. X likes to really try and pride itself on, and the types of projects that we really like to partner on, are those truly creative film and episodic shows that we're able to, as I said at the beginning, kind of augment the photography and provide a seamless level of visual effects. On this case, you can see this is a still from Roma, which was directed by Coran. And this is a plate that they shot. You know, we have a lot of great kind of foreground activity. We have a lot of, you know, good extras and vehicles, but then we kind of flesh out the background in the full city street. So this was a really long tracking shot that we were able to elevate what was shot. And again, that's just the thing that we always push for, is to elevate something, to make something better, and make it as seamless as possible. And so this was a shot where we were able to develop it creatively. We were able to develop the background buildings with the director, the signage, everything, and just expand his vision. And then you have kind of more simple examples of that. So this was from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. This is a film that came out last summer. And this is, you know, looks like a relatively simple shot. It's a person on a blue screen in a car. This is well, it says scary in the title. It's a scary movie. And we had to make this shot feel scary. So it's like you bring in an environment and you bring in some of the elements that, you know, are, again, meant to be seamless. It's not making a point of the effect itself, but it helps bring in the environment and the tone that the director was looking for. And we have another example here where, you know, it's more of one of those seamless effects that we hope no one calls out, but, you know, a little bit of CG goes into this to replace a background, and then ultimately, you know, you're putting slivers through these blinds, but it's something that just, again, expands the world and opens it up. And all of these types of shots where we have an initial plan with the filmmakers is where we are able to deliver something that works out as seamless as that. Here's kind of the inverse, but also trying to do the same, achieve the same goal. So this is from Ad Astra, and this is a fully digital shot that we created. I think I've got some stages here to show you. So, you know, a background kind of world environment and sky. We bring in our CG tower and digidouble, and put it all together and hope that we have, again, a very seamless looking shot, which comes from how it was meant to be lensed, the composition, the lighting, and we make something that looks as well very dramatic. And that seems to, and that the amount of planning that went into a shot like this and the development in terms of the CG tower, it was ongoing for a very long time, but it pays off in the end result. You can't create a shot like this, you know, in a couple of weeks. It really isn't going to give you the end result and tell the story that you want to tell. Here's another example of just kind of like augmentation, you know, where we partner with production design and the art department to be able to just take what they're able to photograph and add more. So this was something where, you know, this was a shot that was dry for wet, so we were making it feel underwater. But instead of putting these CG or these props in camera, you know, we're able to in CG put them in on the visual effects side. And so what that does is, you know, we had direct collaboration with production design on this, and we were able to figure out the best way between us and them financially, schedule-wise, and ultimately final look-wise, what the best approach would be. So this is just a great example of partnering like on set as we're shooting with other departments and being able to collaborate and augment their vision with what visual effects can do. We have a similar example here, which is a little bit more extreme. But again, we were focused on emotion and focused on performance. And if you're really trying to tell that story between these two characters, which is a scene at the end of the movie, if we were to actually put them underwater and expect them to perform, that could be a very daunting task. I mean, just, you know, the logistics and insurance and costs and everything, that aside, just trying to get a performance through underwater isn't going to be easy. So we choose to shoot this dry for wet. And, you know, it was, here's the end shot where we put in kind of an underwater type environment. We have the bioluminescence on the creature, CG hair on Eliza, and it's nice because you're able to capture the true performance of these two characters together, and then take visual effects to augment it further and put it in the environment that the director was envisioning. Here's kind of another simple example of some fire augmentation, but again, to show how we would partner with the filmmaking team to try and get something in camera with real fire, with interactive light, with you know, everything that could be photographed, so that we can then go and add on top of it. And these types of approaches work really well because you've already got baked in lighting into your plate. You've got interactive light from some real fire. You've got perfect lighting reference of how the fire should look because there's real fire in the plate, and you're able to continue to augment that through shots. So that was something that's, you know, a little bit on the more seamless or simple side, but really helps to augment the story, which was the Fahrenheit 451 story in this case. And having that reference, you know, the plate is always the best reference. That's our foundation, and to have some of those elements in the plate that we have worked with the team to plan and be able to shoot will give us a better result in the end. You know, and then there's always this simple kind of the rig removals and stump pads, but the way that really helps to augment the shot when you're able to put the real performer in and then strip away those elements that aren't meant to be seen by an audience. And one of the keys that you can see here is, you know, if we weren't involved up front, there might be wires that cross the actor's face. And, you know, if we have things that are occluding the face of an actor or specific parts of a costume, it can be very time consuming, very expensive to rebuild that. So trying to find these points and rig it from a sense that will work with visual effects is just something that you might not think about needs to happen with the stunt department, but that's one of the things that we're always kind of trying to work through with them, so that, you know, they can get what they need to get in camera, but then when we have to work on it in post, we've planned it out to make sense, to not explode from a budgetary standpoint, because you have things that you just weren't expecting. And then, you know, similar here to being able to work with CG vehicles to be able to basically know where we're going to be shooting. And you can see the camera right there in the shot, and you can see the car in the foreground that we basically replaced, but we've got like perfect lighting reference in the scene. And so that's just one of those things that you can take for granted, where you like that's you know, something that was planned, that was thought through, so that when we put our vehicle in, we have that accurate sense of lighting reference. And it just kind of echoes the point of having, you know, as much in the plates as possible for us to reference when we're putting our work into it. You know, we also do face replacements to be able to put an actor on a stunt performer that, you know, the actor themselves couldn't necessarily perform the stunt. But one of the things that really pays off is with the planning, meaning being able to find a similar angle, similar lens, similar lighting conditions for the face elements that we would eventually put in. If you don't have those key elements, this could be a very difficult thing. It could wind up being a full CG face replacement, which means creating an asset, creating a groom, making a digi-double, animating it, lighting it, rendering it, instead of just basically taking some time to be able to shoot an element that will match that plate and then being able to composite it together. So that's another example of something that's, you know, a bit more planning up front, a little bit more cost on set, but will pay for itself down the road when you are in post. Yeah, that's kind of just kind of a variety examples of where when you plan with visual effects up front and on set, you're able to get these better results more easily. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now.
Look, it's just amazing to see all those visuals. It's amazing to see the amount of work which goes in. I think there used to be a time when people used to figure out what is visual effects and what is not. I think now I think everyone has given up, and no longer tries to find a visual effects element. That's how seamless I think the visual effects elements are integrated with the scene across many of the movies. I think it's really good for the industry as a whole, and also to see what subtle changes or subtleties which gets added to a shot, which makes it even more believable. So thank you for sharing all those with us. And that leads to another question where obviously there are a lot of people behind everything that we are doing. And then when you work on tough projects, how do you keep the team morale high? When a big project finishes, many a times I'm sure artists are drained. So how do you keep them excited for the upcoming assignments or projects?
I think that the key is we need to remember to celebrate ourselves. And that means ourselves and our team. We need to reflect on the work that we're producing, and you know, an artist could be sitting focused on one shot, one task for, it could be months on end. And that could be their whole perception of the movie or the TV show, is that one thing. And it's easy to have your blinders on and forget about the surrounding world. And when you are getting close to a delivery and have a bunch of shots that you can kind of present back to the team to remind them about the work that they've produced, and so that they can see outside of their lane sometimes, it really helps bolster the energy again. You know, everybody here wants to produce images. Everybody here wants to tell stories and work on film and television shows. The end result are the images we produce, and that is where we derive our satisfaction from. That and the credit that we feel from being able to produce that type of work. So when we're in you know, hard working mode, delivery mode, stressful periods where we're trying to get this work done, it's so easy to forget about what we're doing because we're doing the job part of it, right? But behind that and ahead of that is the kind of celebratory periods where, you know, getting into something and developing it is very exciting. Being in the trenches, so to speak, and delivering and fighting and all of that can be very stressful. But then when you come out the other side and then reflect back on the work that you've just produced, that's where you get the excitement back. And then that leads into, all right, what's next? It's the bookends in the process that really mean the most. And it's seeing our work on screen. And when I say celebrating ourselves, it's one of the things where it's easy and free to look at pictures and to be able to compliment people on their achievements. And that's something that we just try and continue to echo with our team, especially during those longer periods of stress. You know, take a break, come up, let's cut together a demo reel. We do that across our sites quite often so that we can give people visibility on the other shows that they may not even be aware of that we're working on. And that spurs ideas on. A supervisor on one show could be see something on another show that they didn't realize we were producing, and then they could start collaborating together on a similar effect on the next show. So it's a fundamental thing that we need to do. Everybody is an artist. Everybody comes from that background, and they want the ownership over the work. They want to bring creative ideas to the table, and they want to see the end result and feel appreciation for that work. And so keeping people motivated it's crucial to the success of the quality and the delivery of our work. If you're not in a good headspace, you are not going to be able to deliver creative work on a daily basis. It's a very difficult thing to every day come in, have ideas, make notes, move things forward. It can be exhausting to have to make that many decisions on a daily basis. And that's what everybody is doing here. You're constantly making creative decisions. And if we can continue to try and bolster that energy by just reminding people people of what we're producing, that's where we really see the benefit. And then obviously wrap parties at the end, if we can go to a movie theater, which isn't really allowed right now, but when we could, and hopefully in the future when we can go do that and we can see the names on screen, that means a lot to people. The first time I saw my name on a screen was a very, very big moment for me. And I know that there's always people that are experiencing that for the first time. So it's something that we always want to push for as well. Get as many credits on a project as possible so people can see their names up on the big screen. That is a big benefit, and is, I think why a lot of people got into it, because they wanted to see their name in the credits.
Well said, Luke. I think many times human brain is rigged in a way where we look at the challenges, we look at problems, we look at things lying ahead, and then not celebrate our success. We don't look back to take that moment to enjoy what we have achieved. So well said, and great to see that kind of a thought process with a leader. And I think we have another 15 minutes, and we can, before we go to the prognosis part, I still have a question to complete in this particular section. In an emerging, this is very India-centric question, in an emerging market like India, with projects that are getting done with fixed budgets and not plan to keep all FX requirement during the shoot, how should studios be approaching this?
Well, I think the interest in producing local content in these jurisdictions, with providers such as Netflix, who are making a big impact on local content creation, means, like as you said, these kind of emerging markets and these new stories that we get to tell. And local content should, it needs that local level of attention, and from a cultural standpoint, from an artist standpoint, to be able to deliver on those stories. And so one of the things that you see with emerging markets is, we were an emerging market once too in North America, and visual effects was a relatively new thing, and people were trying to figure out how to navigate within those with visual effects. And so with a emerging market in India trying to produce local content, it's very much similar to what we went through here. And so what does that mean? That means that luckily, Technicolor and has been a part of India for over a decade now. A company like Mr. X has been in there for many years, and kind of going back to the original point of the conversation with planning and new filmmakers, again, it's the education. So for filmmakers that are getting the opportunity to produce new stories locally for their local markets, that can rely on local visual effects talents that has experience from having to do it in North America, we're already kind of a step ahead in terms of the educational standpoint. We've already got people there that know how to do this work, how to plan this work, how to produce this work, how to shoot this work. And so partnering with them early on is going to just enable a high rate of success for being able to deliver on this work. And obviously in these types of markets, just as it was and kind of still is for us, that budgets are a constraint, schedules are a constraint. So how do you mitigate those constraints? You do the upfront planning and you do the upfront partnership. And so just starting to elevate people on that side that can own that local content and deliver on it with directors and showrunners and producers is going to be crucial. So we're very fortunate that there's been a big investment made in India for that talent, especially for allowing for creative development, creative autonomy. That's the Mr. X way, and that's the partnership that we bring, and that's going to allow supervisors and producers to be able to move into producing content locally. So it's a very challenging thing. It's a very new thing for people that have been making films and episodic television shows for decades. But we're about to start making the outreach, and I think that's where we get into a very exciting period where, yes, we're operated out of North America, but Mr. X in Bangalore could be operating on local work themselves or out of Mumbai. And that is something that we just need to strengthen, because there's no better people to produce content than the people that are going to be the audience for it. And that's where the passion will come from, and that's where the appreciation and credit will come from.
Thank you for the insights, Luke. I'm sure there is no shortcut to experience. Probably, I think we will have to go through what you guys went through in that side of the world. And I think let's move on from the reflection part to the prognosis part. So have a couple of questions on how do you see the near future? So we all know that in today's world with challenging economic conditions and streaming services becoming the next big thing, particularly after COVID, kind of frugal and innovative solutions you are thinking of for the studio to help bring efficiency and achieve high quality work in fairly lesser time and slightly trimmed budget? Basically, more with less. So how
more with less. And I mean, it's been kind of exaggerated by the situation with COVID, but we've always tried to do more with less because we want every penny spent, every dollar spent to show up on the screen. And because of the types of projects that we really push for, genre features, film and episodic television shows, high-level episodic television shows, we're always working within those confines. So every year that goes by, visual effects has to be agile in terms of how they approach the work, because those outside circumstances, schedule and budgets continue to shrink. And now with something like COVID, it makes it even more challenging because that hasn't changed, but our overhead, our structure, our ability to generate work has changed. We went from a lockdown to being able to deploy hundreds of people across the globe to work and continue delivering on shows remotely. That's not something that, was a flip of the switch, so to speak. It took a lot of effort and continues to be an ongoing effort to allow for kind of a seamless workflow during COVID times. So one of the things that we always try and do to be able to do the more for less is we look at these shows as soon as we can in terms of bidding at the script level and start working out strategies. And I think that's just to kind of continue to echo that message. When we have that level of visibility early on, that's when we're able to find these ways of strategizing to make things cost less, take less time, take less resources, as well as offering potential solutions to get things in camera. Because obviously, if you can get it in camera, then it's not going to cost in post, and that provides an opportunity to A, get something that's photographed, but B, potentially avoid a visual effects solution that's unneeded. And there's a lot of money spent on things that weren't planned that could have been achieved in camera. And those are the things that can have budgets just continue to kind of amplify. If you can partner with the visual effects supervisor or producer early, you're able to potentially mitigate a lot of that work. So that's what we always really strive for, is that early partnership, because it does help. We're always there to try and augment the film, and our goal is to find mechanisms to make sure that film can deliver on budget and tell the story that they want to. If we have a unplanned visual effects work that continues to increase a budget, then that's taking away money that could be spent on key visual effects that help push a story forward. So that's one of it sounds like an obvious thing, but it truly does have the best outcome. Partnering early, planning early.
Yep. Sometimes sticking to the basics is all it needs, and necessity is the mother of invention. I'm sure. I think we will evolve through this also. And another question related to COVID is, in VFX industry, I don't think working remotely has been tried and tested before this particular pandemic. So how do you keep your team, because collaboration has been a big part when everyone is at a workplace. So now with people working remotely, how do you keep them motivated, excited, keep that communication flow going?
It's a big challenge. We're hundreds of people, in multiple sites around the world, and we work on projects across our sites, and that means that there's just so many people that are involved at any given time. And with people that are remote or people that are in office, it seems like it's a bit fractured. And so how do we provide that same level of collaboration? And obviously stuff like this, the virtual calls has been invaluable. We're very fortunate that we live live in a day and age with internet bandwidth and the ability to do things like this. I don't think we could have been in the same situation 5 years ago. So the timing has allowed us to be able to execute on this type of workflow successfully. But it's easy for people to, that are isolated to start feeling even more isolated and disconnected from the work. And as soon as you're disconnected from the work, that means the engagement isn't there, and you're not going to be able to deliver at the highest level of the work. So maintaining that sense of collaboration via just continuing to make things as personal as possible, not personal, but casual. The casual, spontaneous things that happen in an office space when everybody's here, when you're, walking the floor and you're talking to artists, you're checking in, you're seeing things on other people's screen, that goes away. So, having as many group meetings, show and tells, just, casual reminders of what you're doing and what you're contributing to is a key to reducing that sense of isolation, because there's nothing better than managing by walking is something that we like to try and do, which means you walk the floor and you see what people do and you engage with them in a spontaneous nature, and you're going to circumvent issues. You're going to see things that look amazing that you hadn't seen, and you're going to be complimentary to the artist in that case. And that's what maintains that kind of energy and the gas in the engine. Without that, because we're remote, we have to pivot to doing it virtually, but it's not the same. And so we had to find different mechanisms to be able to keep that sense of teamwork going. And whether that's, casual, everyone gets together Friday at 5 o'clock, we look at some shots together in a forum and we have a beer together or drink together, like that level of just casual engagement really seems to go a long way. It's hard to replace the in-person experience when you have a team of people in a screening room looking at something on the big screen. That experience, can't be replicated virtually. And so one of the nice things with in our district and with our COVID cases right now is we have been able to bring people back into the office in a certain capacity, or have people come in and do their high-res reviews on the big screen in that experience together, because that's where the magic truly happens, when you're in a dark screening room looking at your images on screen, collaborating as a team, making notes, having ideas. That's where we have been lacking. And so it's nice that we've been able to kind of bring some of that back during COVID times, because that's what really gets our work out there. So I would say that kind of hybrid approach is definitely starting to seem like it's going to have a long-term kind of positive impact. Sometimes there's a reason for isolation. You get to focus on your work without all the noise that there might be from a studio, and that can really help artists as well. So there's something to be said for both sides, and that's why working on this hybrid approach has been kind of enlightening in terms of finding some positives from all sides and being able to put them together to find a new way of working in this new normal that will be more beneficial.
Hello, let's all sincerely hope things return back to normal pretty soon. And while this option always stays with us as an add-on wherever needed. And look, we have almost come to the end of the session, and I want to leave the last question as an open-ended question. I will leave it to you. You can share one thing that you wanted to share that you are really proud of, which you wanted to share with the entire group. It could be about you, or it could be about Mr. X, anything that you want to share.
I think one of the things that we can be very proud of in this industry is just the level of filmmakers that we've been able to partner with over the years and have repeat business and be able to continue to deliver those stories, whether it's Guillermo del Toro or Paul Anderson, or our partnership with Netflix, where we're able to work on so many amazing projects, but also be able to scale that out to our global sites. Very proud of the integration that we've done in India, and the level of creative autonomy that we've been able to provide there, and that is a big success. And I think ultimately the success shows up in the work, and the success shows up in the images that we put on screen, and because we're able to produce these images independently at all sites, means that we're all able to bring something to that project. And that is what I feel is just been such a big success for us, because it's allowed such a wide group of people to be able to bring the best ideas to the table and get those ideas heard and on screen.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you for sharing all the valuable thoughts and insights. We really appreciate your the time you have spent with us. And now, actually, we are really looking forward to having you back on many more forums.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we will have you delivering the presentation in person next time.
Next time in person. Let's hope for that.
Yeah, we have your promise now. So
wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Steve. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you, Luke. And once again, a big thank you to everyone who has tuned in and listening patiently to us, and the organizers for giving us this platform. And we know a lot of work has gone in the background to have this happen digitally.